before starting with the main topic, I think it's quite important to get a little bit of context, just quick context, because I think everyone knows that if you want to know the state of developer relations from this year, you can have a look at this. I think there's really cool insights here, and you can get more knowledge. So I think one of the main issues, and I think also Steve during this morning, it was also mentioned that, is that DevRel roles are really diverse. So a DevRel can be hired by a foundation, they can be hired by a company, they can be hired because they want to manage open source projects or just proprietary software. And that makes really, really difficult to bring up a standard ways of metrics. And moreover, if you adding that, when people hire DevRel roles, they can be hired into different departments. This is from the state of developer relations. You already have all the information here. So it turns out that DevRel roles can report to many different departments, and those departments have different ways and different KPIs to measure success. So it's like, okay, so there's an evidence that it's really, really difficult to bring up a standard ways of measuring DevRel, just because of that, simple. However, we shouldn't forget one important thing about developer relations. DevRel roles are connected, even though they're hired by a foundation for a company, they report to marketing or they report to engineering. The mission of a DevRel is always build relationship with developers. And developers can be seen in many different profiles or personas. For instance, this is some differentiation I usually use in my company. So you can see your developers as users. So mainly they will be asking questions. You can see your developers as contributors that normally have answers. Or you can even see your developers as maintainers that actually creates code. This is more typical in open source communities, for instance. And well, this is from the open source contributors funnel. And I'm not saying we should do a funnel, like trying to get users to contributors to maintainers. That's not the idea, because you can just see your developers as, I just want to get users, and that's fine. But you need to know the type of your community you have. So then, at the end, everything is related with community issues and ways to measure community. Because if developers are everywhere, DevRel should be there too. And I think it's also in this report that the main things that DevRels focus more is on marketing. I understand that, because the 35% of DevRels report to marketing. But that's not the only thing. Remember that we are here to connect other developers and to build relationships, and that's community. And they can be doing code review, they can be on mailing lists, they can be asking questions in forums. They also can be in meetings and events, search for documentation, or being in chats. So it's not just focused on half of those channels, that it's what marketing is providing. It's focusing on the whole picture to see what's going on actually with your DevRel community. And with this, we came to the situation that we need to measure, because we need to know what's going on. And during This conference, I've been listening a lot of ways to measure DevRel actions in terms of acquisition, engagement, and satisfaction. But the thing here is that I've always listened that from a marketing point of view. Like, oh yeah, I have documentation and I measure, for instance, sign-ups or something like that. That's really marketing focused. So in today's presentation, I want to share with you some ideas, some metrics and ways to measure your developer programs in terms of acquisition, engagement, and satisfaction, but far away from marketing, like more focused in a community perspective. So let's get started. The first point is measuring acquisition. Before beginning with this, just to let you know that these are just some examples. And at the end of the talk, I would love to talk with you and share some other metrics you usually use or you would like to know more about, so we can complete this picture better. One of the ideas we can measure is the developer growth by software product or project. I'm showing you some examples, some real examples. This comes from the Chaos community. It's if you're not familiar with that, so this is an open source project from the Linux Foundation, and it's basically focused on creating analytics and metrics to help define community health. So they wanted to know what was going on with the community, basically. And this screenshot, you can see the activity over time from different data sources, that it's basically where that community was. So they're measuring Git, GitHub issues. I don't know if you can see it well, but it's Git, GitHub issues, GitHub pull request, and mailing list. So this is just basic stuff, basic metrics. But the idea of this picture is that you don't just go ahead and see what's going on GitHub, because it's not the only channel your community is using. You should need to know, okay, what are the different channels where my community is, and then get the whole picture of that. One of the other things we can try to analyze is the developer retention rate or the developer bounce rate. And in order to understand that, I'm going to tell you a little story, and then I will give you some context. So this is a software that uses Grimo Lab. Is open source, and you can just try it your own if you would like. So if you go to the activity, community, and go to attraction and retention, and imagine we want to measure Git, because we have found that our community, it's really engaged. It does a lot of Git code, for instance, and that's a lot of Git commits. So in here you can see the attracted developers and the last commit developers over a period of time. This still is the Chaos community, as I said. So if we go to the attracted developers, we zoom in a little bit. We see here there is a high peak. It was around March. So what this is measuring is Git commits, the first Git commit from a developer. So this is the attracted developers 26. So we go in, and we can see, okay, from this month, the 26 developers, when those developers made their last commits over a period of time. Okay, so to get insights from that, we need to get a domain knowledge. That's what the DevRel is for. So we can define that, for instance, a lot developer for us is a developer that made their last commit 6 months ago, for instance. So we will see that even though we got 26 developers, only 2 of them remained it until today, because we are talking here, it's July And this is, well, yeah, just one developer remained until today, because the other ones, for instance, most of them, the 20 developers that contributed to Git during March, left the next month. So we can, with that information, we can get the developer retention rate and also the developer bounce rate going month by month. And this is just for Git, but we can do the same in many different data sources, for instance. So then, about measuring engagement, I think this is the most fun part. Okay, so we have been talking also about profiling developer communities and getting personas. And I think if we take a look about the data sources, about all the different channels where the developer community is, they can help us a lot define that. So if we take a look about all the different data sources aggregated, all the different channels where a community is, we can define if my community is a contributors community, it's a user community, it's a maintainer community, or any other type of community you would like to profile. This is just my example, but as I said, this depends a lot of domain knowledge. This is what DevRel is for, to interpret that data. So in this case, this also still being Chaos. As I don't know if you remember Chaos, it's an open source project. So normally, the type of community they will have will be a contributors community, developers that actually creates code. And that's why the main activity they are showing over a period of time is Git. The blue stuff is Git. So in a different community, maybe they can find just more GitHub issues activity. That will mean that maybe that community is not a contributors community, it's a user community. There are users that ask questions, and that's why they have a lot of issues, but they don't create code and they don't submit code, for instance. And just to show you the example. Okay, so this is from last 90 days, so we can filter for the last 5 years. So this is the same picture. I think this was from the last 3 years, and this is from the last 5 years. But as you can see, this community is mainly Git and mainly a contributors community. And using the same visualization or kind of visualization, like the main concept here is try to aggregate all the channels, all the knowledge you have about your community. You can even try to better define a persona's pattern. And I will go again to my dashboard. Was here? Yeah. Okay, so here we can filter by data source. So we have Git, GitHub pull request, blah, blah, blah. So that's what the community wanted to track. We can also filter by projects, organizations involved, because this is open source community. And then we have contributors. So we can search for a specific developer. And I'm gonna search for, okay, so I chosen him because he's my CEO. That's why. And I always like to see his evolution. I think it's really visual. So it's here. This is the important visualization. As you can see, this is from last 5 years, maybe. Yeah, when he was hired as a CEO, he began to add a lot of Git, add a lot of contribution to the project. But then he suddenly stopped, and he started to ask questions, add a lot of GitHub issues. So just imagine if I'm the DevRel and I say, yeah, I'm gonna track Git, just only Git, because I think it's the most important channel in my community. So if I only measure Git, well, I cannot do that, but I will just see that this developer for me is dead on January 18th, because I cannot see anything else. I'm not getting the overall picture of my community. I'm just tracking just part of the channels. And that's not true. He just started to get more responsibilities, and that's why most of the CEOs started adding code, and then they get into more managing things and getting more questions instead of actually getting into code stuff. So with that, we can even add more insights to our personas, the personas we are building for. Another thing we can analyze is developer engagement by software product or project, depending. So for instance, in the Chaos community, they are running different projects. Grimolab is the one that we also use in our company in Vitoria, just to let you know. So we can see it's the most active community and the most engaged community project among the other ones. And we can also identify which projects had at some point some activity and then were left, like the one on Prospector. So it started to get some activity and then it suddenly didn't get so activity. And again, I don't know what this data means because I'm not into the Chaos community, but the DevRel should have those knowledge, like what this exactly means. Like, okay, what happened that? What did we do wrong? Or what can we do better in order to improve that engagement with the project itself? And finally, things related with measuring developer satisfaction. And for that, I would like to tell you some story. This story is related with Uber OSPO use case, because we have been working with Uber OSPO. And for those who doesn't know what OSPO means, comes from Open Source Program Office. So it's another department or places where open source and all the related activities related with open source are centralized and growing inside a company. And well, this started because open source right now is eating the software industry. And I'm not saying this, the data is saying that. And the companies, most of the companies that owns an open source program office are these ones. This comes from the to-do group organization. So this is an open community, open group for all those companies that has open source program office and just to get into one single community. And well, I just add like new department for a dev role. Probably some dev roles are within OSPO. I don't know if any one of you in this room, no? You? Okay, there's one. And I think that's gonna be increasing during the next months, indeed. So be aware. So coming back to the use case. Uber wanted to know how efficient are they being in emerging pull requests. Okay, so they wanted to measure GitHub in this case. But not only that, they wanted to know how fast are they being when measuring Uber developers versus non-Uber developers. And it turns out that they tend to merge non-Uber developer took them more time rather than when they wanted to merge a Uber developer pull request. So this data is, so you go here, this is GitHub pull request, and well, this is the dashboard from Uber. If you go to its public dashboard, you can go to uber.bitter.io and just take a quick look at if you would like to find more data. So in here we can see the time to merge. So we can filter by organizations. So these are the organizations involved. So we can say, okay, I want to know the data with only Uber. So this work from the last 90 days. Let's go to last 2 years, for instance. And here we can see the median time to merge in days. That's in days. If you just want to see the hour, just plus multiply by 24, and that's all. And then we can go and say, okay, I want to know the non-Uber users. So you just filter this, and you get the median time to merge for non-Uber users. And I think that's really important to measure in satisfaction. And finally, to sum up everything I said, the first important thing for me I want you to take from this talk is that DevRel, it's about building relationships. And it doesn't matter, well, it matters the department you came from, but always have on mind the real mission and the why you were hired as a DevRel and not as a marketing specialist. Because DevRel is about building relationship and it's about community. And it's really, really nice that you track things related with marketing, but don't only do that. Go more beyond that. The second thing is be near your developers and go to the same places where they are. Don't just say, okay, the main channels are these ones, so I'm just gonna track, I don't know, GitHub and Slack, and that's all. Okay, maybe your developer community is somewhere else. Maybe they can be in social media, they can be interacting with your documentation and so on, but try to get the whole picture. And finally, but this is really, really, really important, understanding metrics takes a lot of time. And for those who maybe are looking for the uber.peter.io data, maybe you see that at the first glance and say, okay, this is really cool dashboard and nice, but I don't understand that. And the reason because of that is that it takes time and also needs to get the domain knowledge. And you're a DevRel because you have that domain knowledge. You are the ones that can interpret those data and tell to your boss, hey, this is what is happening. You might not know what's going on with just a bunch of numbers, but you're the ones that are gonna be there to interpret that and to get insights for your community. And that's everything. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can follow me on Twitter, you can drop me an email, also on LinkedIn. And that's all. Hope you like it.